At our press conference, and today we're going to discuss research presentation foreign policy audit Ukraine-Romania, and we're going to speak about this topic today. And I'm a co-author of this survey, and I'm glad to present it. And also among the participants of today's discussion, we have extraordinary and plenipotentiary ambassador of Romania, and also an expert, Stanislav Secrieru, Senior Research Fellow, who has a lot of experience in the area. And he will tell us about cooperation between Kiev and Bucharest, and also maybe we'll analyze this triangle we speak about a lot, Ukraine, Hungary, and Poland. And Stanislav Secrieru represents Polish Institute of International Affairs, PISM. And then we will be joined by the representative of Foreign Affairs Ministry that specializes in the relation between Ukraine and Romania. And he is going to tell us about his views on the development of cooperation between Ukraine and Romania, and will give his assessment of this cooperation. And also I would like to thank you for joining this discussion. We will have short speeches, and then I'm going, I hope, for fruitful discussion, and maybe we will be adding something new. And we thank our partners who supported this project. We're speaking about Black Sea Trust, German fund, USAID, PACT, and Uniter. So I start briefly with our analysis. It was very interesting to analyze our relationship between Ukraine and Romania. And during the last 15 years, we had a lot of publications on cooperation between Kiev and Bucharest. And I would like to say that this time it was really interesting for me and pleasant to analyze a serious shift, historical shift in the relationship. We see a reopening of our relationship, and maybe everyone knows that in declarations it wasn't mentioned in the previous years, but there was some hostile attitude beforehand, and there was some suspicion in the relationship because of different reasons. And after aggression of Russian Federation in 2014, we see that we cooperate closely among our countries on the basis of common security. And this commonness is from one side is positive, because both states understood the value of each other, and we understand common threat, and we saw that we should cooperate more, and maybe we were not so happy with the idea of Great Romania, and in Romania they believed that Ukraine has many interests connected with Russia. And after Russian aggression, the situation changed dramatically, and the threat from Russia, especially in Crimea, it is near Romania, and in 2014 there was direct threat that of the Novorossiya project, and Russian threat was near Romania at that time, and we continued our cooperation. We reopened our cooperation, but there was some contradictions, because friendship against someone can bring some fruit, but only in short-term perspective. And if we are speaking about long-term perspective, we should think about broader issues that will help us cooperate better. And we have a lot of areas for cooperation. And the Institute of Policy tried to pay attention in our survey to these matters. Of course, we have a lot of problems, but in bilateral relationship of any states, there are problems. Of course, it is naive to believe that problems won't exist, but we should understand how to cooperate, and now we have an optimism that Romania and Ukraine will be able to solve the issues in a friendly way, whether it is the matters of national minorities or some other issues, Krivorisky or the restoration of deep water navigation in Danube. And also, we should understand that we should deal in the bilateral basis, and maybe some third parties, international organizations, can be involved in the process of cooperation. So this is a new way of cooperation, and what are the indicators that this relationship changed? First, the ratification of the association agreement by Romanian Parliament, and Romania was the first country that did this in the European Union, and we can see different indicators that Romania was interested to approve this document, and they voted for this document and this package, and this was an important diplomatic step that they valued here in Kiev, and Ukrainian diplomats and experts were convinced that first Poland or other country will adopt the document, but Romania was the first one. And also there was an active work and in the political sphere, and our presidents met 4 times, and we restored bilateral presidential commission that hasn't been in operation for 9 years, and that some agreements were signed in order to carry out cross-border cooperation. Also, a transportation area was developed. Air transport, there was no direct flights, so the people had to go through Vienna or through Amsterdam, and also they negotiated some shuttle bus transportation, and also we had some interesting issues in security sphere, and this is of prime importance for Ukraine. You know that Ukrainian president also supported the idea of Romania to create a Black Sea fleet, and also Ukraine is ready to join the project. Of course, there can be some problems connected with other Black Sea region countries. Bulgaria, for example, is the weak link in this, but it shouldn't disappoint or reduce the rate of dialogue between Romania and Ukraine and other participants, except Russia. So we should cooperate, and Ukraine can be not official member of NATO through a Black Sea cooperation and also land cooperation. If we remember about joint brigade, and if we look at geography, Ukraine can turn into a hub in the network for cooperation of different states, and we have good prospects, and Bucharest and Kiev should work in this area, and I hope that Stanislav will tell us about this triangle. And also this idea is discussed in the community, and also I am going to speak about recommendations. And first recommendation is cooperation in security sphere. If we are speaking about projects and initiatives, we already discussed them. This is the leading role of Romania in trust fund and cybersecurity. Romania is the leader in this sphere in the world, and some experts from the United States also shared their experience with their Romania counterparts, and also we need a dialogue in this triangle, Ukraine, Poland, and Romania, and we hope that our problems will be resolved, and we should use the experience of reforms in Romania, especially in the interest connected with fighting corruption. I would say that Romania can be one of the best examples for Ukraine, because they had long transitional period. They created anti-corruption agencies, but they started their active work in 10 years. And Ukraine, we hope it will overcome these problems, not in 10 years, but faster. And we hope that Romanian experience will be great for us in this respect. And we know that our heads of anti-corruption agencies, they went to Romania and they gained some valuable experience, and we hope for results. And also very interesting cooperation in energy sphere. Romania is less dependent from Gazprom, from the EU countries that buy Russian gas. And Romania also is verified by the European Commission on antitrust legislation, and it is connected with energy companies in Romania, because they do not bring gas to other countries of the European Union. And the dialogue that was started between Ukraine and Romania will help the companies to show that they started the dialogue. And maybe this expert potential of Romania will be good for Ukraine, and for this we should build our capabilities. And also reverse of the gas from Romania can be valuable for Ukraine, that also want to improve its energy efficiency and independence from Russian energy supply. Also, problematic issues, they exist, and I named them. And of course, we should continue our cooperation, and so some problems can be obstacles, but of course we should have patience, because any problems in bilateral relationship can be used by a third party. That's why we see this dialogue between Ukraine and Poland, and we can see that, especially in the information space and in the media, how they, in the Russian media, they show this relationship, and we should demonstrate other approach to partnership. As to minorities, this is a vulnerable issue in bilateral cooperation, and it will be discussed during this discussion. Of course, Ukraine has to defend the cultural rights of minorities, and Romania should understand that Ukraine cannot radically act in some issues, especially concerning ethnic minorities. We cannot force identify minority otherwise, and we should be patient in this respect, because this can be used by a third party that is a threat to both countries. about transport connections. I already said about it, and we should cooperate in this sphere. Economic cooperation is important. Romania belongs to 10 countries that import Ukrainian goods, but of course we should improve. And also there are hopes from business that the association agreement will deepen the cooperation. There are some threats we could discuss also in economic area, and threats of corruption in Ukraine or mistrust of Romanian investors in Ukraine because of Kryvyi Rih or other issues, but these problems that we can overcome. And Ukraine and Romania, they renew their cooperation in at the absolutely different level, and it should inspire Kiev and Bucharest for great results in cooperation and in the cooperation between the countries on the whole. So this is the top of the iceberg, what we have in our research, and we'll be glad if you express your opinion. And this is a discussion paper, so some aspects we debated with our colleagues till the last minute, and I would like to give the floor to the ambassador of Romania, and we would like to hear the opinion of the official Bucharest, the official assessment about the bilateral relationship between our states and how we can use these new opportunities for partnership. So please, we have 5 minutes each. And also, please speak slowly. It is important for simultaneous translation. Thank you.
Sergei, distinguished audience, my dear friends, maybe now, today, for me, it's a very important moment just because I will finish soon, very soon, my mission in Ukraine after 5 years. And it's very important just because I'm going home and I have to know where we are now and what we have to do in the near future. Bună ziua, domnul. So, allow me please to begin by commending the excellent initiative of the Institute of World Policy, aiming at regularly hosting such topical and interesting public discussions on the bilateral relations of Ukraine with various countries. They are excellent opportunity for openly approaching topics of interest for both the host nation and other partner countries. And they are all great moments for seeing now how far we've got together, where we stand, and what the way forward will be in the future. I will not get into too deep details as far as Romanian and Ukrainian relations are concerned. The discussion paper does it, and it does it well and comprehensively. But I will tell you this: through hard work, vision, and political maturity, the Romanian-Ukrainian bilateral relations are now strong enough to lay the solid foundation for further development at a steadfast pace. Our presidents met, and so did our Prime Minister and the members of the Parliament. We are in the process of relaunch various joint commission, presidential, minorities, and economic. We have excellent working relations with our Ukrainian colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other line ministries. We are building stronger and deeper relations in the regions. The Romanian and Ukrainian communities in the two countries are reliable bridges between the two nations. And here I can only greet the bilateral agreement on the small border traffic that is extremely useful for 2 million of Romanian and Ukrainians on the both sides of the border, common border, as well as the recent opening of the new Romanian consulate in Solotvino, 6 May this year. But of course, concrete results that people can feel are most important. And here I must mention Romanians' constant and unequivocal support for Ukrainians' European endeavor. This is why we support the full implementation of the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement and the visa liberalization process for the Ukrainian citizens. We support the Ukrainian reforms by financing projects related to the electoral reform, the National Guard, and the fight against corruption. We are also trying to contribute to Ukraine's security by advocating the extension of the sanctions imposed on Russia after the illegal annexation of Crimea and the outburst of the conflict in Donbass. We also play a prominent role in NATO's cyber defense projects for Ukraine. And there could be many other things to add here. What means the immediate way forward? The simple answer is more cross-border cooperation for better infrastructure in order to further development of mobility, more education-related projects, better economic cooperation, modern border crossing points by utilizing the funds of the joint operational programs, reliable interconnection between our energy networks, etc. Just to mention a couple of our endeavors in the foreseeable future. Let me end up by merely recalling the bilateral relations have always their ups and downs, and that we don't always live in the land of milk and honey. But let me also end up by assuring you that the Romanian-Ukrainian bilateral relations are stronger today than ever, and that they are progressing steadfastly in all respects. Thank you very much.
Дуже вам дякую, пане посол.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I would like to give the word to the representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. What is your vision? Unfortunately, you have not heard the beginning of this dialogue, but you have the opportunity to read through the research. Maybe you can provide us an outline of this research, of its new ideas, which maybe the Ministry of Foreign Affairs liked most of all. Thank you, first of all, for your invitation to represent the view of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and maybe my personal view. To some extent. First of all, I would like to mention in this dialogue, this news conference, this is the start of the dialogue which we needed long ago between civil societies about not simple relations of the country's neighbors. And here I agree completely with my old friend, I can say so, the ambassador of Romania to Ukraine. Not simple relations which experienced both ups and downs, and which for a long time were named more as problematic, not as friendly relations. Hopefully, and we are very glad that now we have already come to the new level of mutual trust in our relations. We now have more confidence in each other, and we are seeking the ways to strengthen our relations within a security structure in Europe and in our region, and which is also important, good neighborhood relations between the countries. Whether we can talk today that we have already resolved all the problems. Of course not, but I'm very glad that the experts, both from Romanian and Ukrainian side, are talking about this transparently, that we have problematic issues and we do not hide them, and we not only exchange notes at the official level, where the atmosphere of tension in the relations may be established, but today, in the atmosphere of the willingness to address these problems, I'm glad that the Presidential Commission has resumed its activities, as well as the SAM Commission on the problematic issues. I am sure that the atmosphere which today is present in these relations, it will provide the opportunity for us to fast overcome the problems which we experience, and to come to the level of really strategic partnership between the countries, which play extremely important role in the regional security issues. And I am sure that today today's state of security in the region may be improved only thanks to cooperation, transparency in the relations between Romania and Ukraine. And I would like to invite you to ask questions. Thank you for very good expression of the cooperation between Romania and Ukraine. It started not today, it started before the first forum between Ukraine and Romania took place in 2012. The second was in 2014, during the time of the Revolution of Dignity. Those events of 2012 and 2014, they laid the foundation to change the spirit, the discourse of both countries in perception of each other, and now we can see the results, the outcomes of what we started those years. Stanislav, could you please continue and tell us whether this civil society dialogue was built efficiently, what else can be done at the level of civil societies of Ukraine and Romania, and talking about a regional dimension in the security sphere. It is interesting to listen to your opinion.
You've mentioned those two forums which were organized, and I was participant of those two forums. It was not easy task to gather experts and make them talk and share ideas. I think we have to restart this forum actually. Even if we have this positive dynamic, it would be a very nice practice to have every year, one in Bucharest, once in Kiev, a very frank talk between what appears now among the friends. Because at the beginning there were not a lot even contacts between experts. Now many of them become simply friends. So we have to continue this forum and gatherings. And as our agenda probably expanding, experts will have even more to discuss and to see what are the ways forward. I think I would agree with these speakers that I think we have the best atmosphere in bilateral relations in 25 years. And I think it's the best moment to build something more ambitious. And I will explain why. Romania is at the end of big transformation, which began with determination to join EU and NATO. Romania was very much focused to attain those objectives. Once joining NATO and EU, Romania was hardly working to find its role and define a profile inside those organizations. So now Romania is not a newcomer in NATO EU. It's a member with a very powerful positions inside those two organizations. And it precisely knows what it wants now. Romania for Ukraine can serve not only as an example how to pursue your strategic objectives. Luckily, Ukraine wants the same thing, to join EU and NATO. Romania is ready not only to share experience on best practices, but what kind of mistakes Ukraine should avoid in order not to make this transformation longer than it should be. But then it's not only about security relationship. You mentioned rightly in the report, but it's a security-driven reapproachment very much now. And even there, in security area, there are a lot of things which Romania and Ukraine can do a lot in the next 5 years. For instance, to give you an example, both countries have a very strong industrial military potential. Why not to talk and conclude agreement on technical military cooperation between those two countries? Why not to find the cooperative initiatives between those two industries where they can cooperate? Why not to talk about military education, training each other? It's not only Romania which was involved in out-of-area NATO operations and gained a lot of experience. They are very experienced Romanian officers. But now Ukrainian officers can share their practices on confronting hybrid threats in Donbass. So it will be beneficial for both sides. When we talk actually about Romanian-Ukrainian relations, it's not about that somebody will profit and somebody will just give. It's a relationship which is driven by mutual interest, in which both sides gain a lot. But then, you've mentioned it's security-driven. What probably is the way for the next 5 years is to deepen security dialogue, but then to broaden the relationship between Romania and Ukraine. To broaden, I gave example of a forum, and probably when I'm thinking about forum, it would be good to include and to have one panel, not only between Romanian and Ukrainian experts, but maybe also to include Polish experts, to have separate panel inside this big forum. Maybe next year to have a panel which will include Turkish experts in order to explore the possibility of trilateral cooperation between Turkey, Romania and Ukraine. Why not to think about also a trilateral due to a very advanced security relationship between Romania and the United States? A growing role of Romania in the Black Sea is one of the important pillars of NATO in the Black Sea. Why not to explore the possibility of cooperation between the United States, Ukraine and Romania in the Black Sea region? But as I say, we need to explore economic side of this relationship. The turnover of below 1 billion, it's not serious for economies and such a big market which represent Romania and Ukraine. The thing is to restart economic relationship using the DCFTA opportunities. Second, as Ukraine is probably very close to get the visa-free regime with European Union, I think it will be an interesting opportunity to explore how to boost the tourism. Why not to encourage more Romanians to go in Ukraine, and particularly when the hryvnia was devolved, and probably it's much cheaper for Romanians to travel. Why not to explore these opportunities for Romanians to discover Ukraine? And the same should be valid for Ukraine. Ukraine will not be forever in economic stagnation. We already see the indicators which are showing that Ukrainian economy is recovering. So as economy will recover, there will be a lot of opportunities for Ukrainians also to explore Romania. And I will probably will conclude with opening remarks of this foreign policy. As Romanian-Ukrainian relationship is improving, I think the partners will be mature enough and wise enough to include third parties in this kind of dialogue. Obviously, the relationship with Poland, this is the primary target probably of this kind of trialogues. The states are comparatively strong enough in terms of military and economic potential, and obviously they will be crucial to build a strong security environment against threats and risks which are incoming from the West. They also represent a big, huge market. Unfortunately, between Ukraine and Romania is still unexplored. So the obvious thing is to look into the economics between those three countries. But then also Poland and Romania can help Ukraine in terms of how to reform local administration, for instance, from Poland. You've mentioned corruption. Corruption is really important for a deeper security relationship between Romania, Ukraine, and Poland, Ukraine, because you have to know with whom you share information. These partners should be very credible in terms of such sensitive issues as security. And then, obviously, the last point is that I don't think that Russia is very happy with this kind of reapproachment. During Maidan and after Maidan, I was following a lot of media attacks to spoil the relationship. Probably the best success in terms of counter-propaganda in Ukraine is stop fake. So why not to think how to use this stop fake opportunity and build something between Romanian and Ukrainian mass media, which would share reciprocally information, debunking Russian myths, debunking the myths that Romania has a territorial claims towards Ukraine, or vice versa. So let's think how to protect this emerging relationship from obviously propaganda, mounting propaganda, which will be developing as relationships will be improving. I will conclude with this and will be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Дуже дякую, Станіславе. В свою чергу, ще
Thank you, Stanislav. About the role of Romania in the key organizations of the continent, NATO and the EU. Romania, in the first months of Russian aggression, it worked on the Ukrainian dossier, and this was a valuable contribution. And also, Romania belongs to 5 countries that are most active, who advocate the sanctions against Russian Federation and even for strengthening the sanctions. You know that other countries are Lithuania, Sweden, Britain, Poland, and Romania. And in this issue, the cooperation between Kiev and Bucharest in this respect is very important, especially taking into account that tomorrow we can wake up and we can understand that one country is left out. And we hope We should be optimists in this respect and hope that this will not happen. So I'm very glad to welcome People's Deputy and the co-head of the group of interparliamentary friendship between Ukraine and Romania, and we will be very glad to hear your opinion about interdepartmental cooperation. So please, you are given the floor. Thank you. So dear guests, thank you for this opportunity to be here and to participate in this discussion. This is an important matter. I am the deputy of 8th Convocation of Supreme Council, and I represent a region where ethnic minorities, Romanian ethnic minorities live. So 70% of minorities are there in Chernovetsky Oblast, and I am ethnic minority representative. I am ethnically Romanian, and I would like to speak about 3 important aspects. Taking into account Russian aggression, we should maximally help. We should obtain help from our partners in Romania, and we should develop cooperation and deepen cooperation in security and defense sphere, and also in cybersecurity. Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, and Bulgaria, with participation of Turkey. We spoke about it with experts, and this also was supported by Ambassador Mr. Gondishin and other experts. Transnistrian conflict, we understand that the preservation prevent the active participation in European community, and we should make real steps, and Romania helps us in this, and also information security. The issue of information security is important, and in Odessa and Chernovetska Oblast, where Romanian minorities live, pro-Russian media, they use this factor, and there were some assembly of Romanians of Ukraine, and mass media, they promote this topic, and there should be a common media strategy between Ukraine and Romania. And I'm a co-head of interdepartmental cooperation unit, and we work on the opening of office in Chernovtsi and Odessa in order to include this resource and to start a new project of regional cooperation, cross-border cooperation, to create a strategy of media support, and this is important. And Romania, as Ukraine, is the member of Danube strategy, and Ukraine has all the chances to get co-financing for some projects together with Romania. And one more aspect I wanted to say about Transnistria conflict. I was a student in 1993. I was in Tiraspol that time, and we should not frozen the conflict. We should make efforts. And the last meeting of the presidents, for me as a deputy who represent Bukovina, who represent Ukraine, For me, this is a very important sign of development. Transnistrian Crimea. Maybe these issues unite Ukraine and Romania, these problems that exist in these regions. So I would not idealize the role of the president of Romania in respect of former President Basescu. And when he was in office, there was some rather good relationship, but I believe that a bad situation united us, and when a house is on fire, so it's great when neighbors help. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Thank you for this discussion. So we hope that our discussion paper will be really useful. Dear colleagues, please, the questions. Mr. Kravchenko. Valery Kravchenko, National Institute of Strategic Research. 2 questions. The first one, connected with our prospects, our NATO aspirations, and we wait for Warsaw Summit, and we know that they will set that the decision of Bucharest Summit will be enforced. Maybe this is an optimistic forecast. But this is a real scenario for Ukraine, for Georgia, for Moldova, those countries that were destabilized in different times by our neighbor. So realistically, we won't be NATO members. Today, we said about relaunch, restart, and a question to our Romanian counterparts. What is the attitude of Romania towards the possibility to relaunch such organization as GOAM?
Для військового співробітництва між країнами, відповідно.
To cooperate between Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova, Azerbaijan, and what are the prospects of this organization? It will be in force. So this initiative is in Visegrad form in order to cooperate in military sphere. What are the prospects of this initiative, and does Romania support this initiative? And the second question is connected with the problem that is latent at the moment and can develop. I mean the problem of such a project of Bessarabia.
Готова до появи такої гібридної загрози.
So, are you ready for this global threat that will be a destabilizing factor of Moldova through the influence on ethnic minorities in Gagauzia, Bulgarians, and is Romania ready for such a threat? Thank you. Who is ready to give the answer?
Румунія інтерес до розбудови.
The interest to build up cooperation with GOM.
І проект Бессарабія.
And about Bessarabia project.
I will switch to Russian if to be more exactly, just because as I understand,
Ми вас не
it's a very-
запідозримо в проросійськості.
We won't say that you are pro-Russian.
который прозвучал
The question that was discussed here, I mean the first one, if I understood it correctly, you asked about the prospects of Guam and what is the attitude of Romania towards broadening of cooperation in the military sphere. I mean to relaunch Guam. I wanted to specify, as I remember, when GOM was started, it was as an organization that have economic platform. And I would say, and I would like to mention this definition for the organization that is based on economic platform And from this point of view, I would say even more. I am not ready to answer this question because I do not see the opportunity to discuss such an issue. I'm sorry, I won't comment on this. About Moldova, you know, and other people who are here in this hall, we all know that Romania is interested that there will be stability in Moldova, and we have good cooperation, and as well as with Ukraine, to have good situation in our borderline areas, that people should live in stability, and they will be not only consumers but also creators of security. And we can speak a lot about it, but if you choose 2 or 3 areas, I would be really glad. So our attitude remains the same in relation to the situation in Moldova. So I think that we should use all the formula of cooperation that exist, and I think that there were some trilateral meetings in Kiev, Bucharest, and Chisinau in order to find the best formulas for the continuation of our cooperation that are of interest and to broaden our cooperation. Stanislav, so experts can deliberate on this issue and about military cooperation through Guam. We have prospects for this?
Think about Guam as a platform for military cooperation between those 2 countries. As far as I remember, Guam was a setup which was very much a platform between the presidents who knew very well each other. We have different leaders now in those 4 countries. Actually, it was 5 because initially it was 2. It was Uzbekistan, but then Uzbekistan decided to leave this kind of platform. I think instead of creating new formats, it's better to focus on what we have on the table, on the formats which are working now, and to get the maximum out of them, instead of setting up a new format. Because it takes away the energy, it spreads our resources, and I don't see really the way for cooperation between those 4 countries right now, especially if I think about Azerbaijan, which has a slightly different agenda than Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova. On the question about Russian attempts of hybrid scenario in Moldova, manipulating minorities, there was attempt in 2014 actually, during Maidan. Some youngsters from Gagauzia were trained in Russia, and they were reinserted back to Moldova. Fortunately, intelligence services of Moldova disrupted this network. And some of the people who were doing recruitment found refuge in Russia, actually. So Moldovan authorities know who are they and where are they. And I think in Chisinau we're pretty aware of these kind of threats because Russia will not give up. On the side of Romania, I see a very wise attitude towards minorities in Moldova. Partially, development aid of Romania is channeled actually towards Gagauzia. There are new projects there to support infrastructure and to show the benefits of cooperation, benefits of getting closer to European Union. They're at the initial stage, but what I would expect probably a bigger synergy between Romanian development aid and new projects which are financed actually by European Union in Gagauzia. Second, about Romanian position on Transnistria. Probably you know that recently DCFTA treaty was extended, its application, to Transnistria. And Romania was among the states which supported this decision. Because it doesn't see economic instability in Transnistria as an advantage. It's through DCFTA, probably will guarantee a modicum of economic stability in Transnistria. And in the longer term, drawing Transnistria closer to Moldova and closer to EU. But it will be a long-term project, I think. So on the part of Romania, we see that they're aware of these threats and they channel energy and resources to minimize and to reduce Russian capacity to manipulate these minorities in Moldova. But ultimately, it's a responsibility of authorities in Chisinau to pay attention, to focus, and to develop regions in which minorities live. Because nobody from abroad will come and help you. Friends can provide assistance, but nobody will do job instead of authorities in Chisinau. Thank you.
Дуже дякую. Лівий берег, Соловей.
Bank Solovey. The question to Mr. Ambassador Liberik Igor Solovey. Tell us, please, what is the attitude of Romania towards the Transnistria issue? Did it change in connection with the last events, I mean armed aggression of Russian Federation against Ukraine? Did approach change towards Transnistria issue? Maybe you will speak about previous issue. Several words. I would like to want the experts and journalists from some improper views, such as military component of GUM. GUM is the consultative mechanism to of counteracting, and it is connected with the conventional armament in Europe to counteract a Russian position. But despite this, military component was never discussed because each of the country has its own special position on the security issues of its own territory. As of today, the status of neutrality is in the Constitution of Moldova Republic, and Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Moldova, they have serious problems with territorial integrity, and they have threats, and the situation depends on Russian Federation, and Russian Federation is an important part of negotiating project on Transnistria, Karabakh issues. So when we speak about it, it provides some benefits to Russian propaganda. And we shouldn't do this. We should stay away from these issues because there is no real basis for discussing such issues. And here I agree with Stanislav that it only disseminates the resources without any results at the start. So, speaking briefly, nothing changes. Romania, from the very start, after it took part in the first format that was on peaceful regulation of Transnistria conflict, we are for peaceful solutions to resolve the conflict in Transnistria region of Moldova. our position remains the same, and after we left that format in December of 1992, and then I wouldn't say a lot, but there were some formats. And at the end, it was a 5+2, and Romania as a country that neighboring Moldova, and as a country that is the EU member, we are, of course, for peaceful regulation in the framework of existing format, and will welcome any initiatives that lead to peaceful resolution. And we will be glad if we see any positive changes in this process. And we are waiting for a resumption of the talks in this format.
Good afternoon, Mariana Prisizhnuk, RBK Ukraine. I have two questions. The first is about format 5+2. Ukraine is also a member of this process. Could you tell us what is the role of Ukraine? What is constructive role of Ukraine in this process, given Ukrainian obligations under Minsk agreements, and how rhetorics of Romania changed when Donbass warfare started, and whether in Transnistria Donbass version of events is possible. Of course, I have certain experience of participating in Transnistria conflict settlement process, but today I am more engaged in more address bilateral relations as concern 5+2 format of negotiations this month. We had the first meeting. This is resumption from 2013. We didn't have in this format negotiations since the time. This year the format has resumed. I can't tell that we have huge achievements. I'm sure. However, this is my personal opinion. This is not the position of Ukrainian state. I think that the focus of negotiations on solutions of important issues of mutual relations of right and left bank of the river Dniester. This is the problem of importance, but 5+2 format was established for political search, for the search of political settlement of the war conflict, to find the formula of returning Transnistria to Moldova, and provision of rights of autonomy to Transnistria region. All this is far from the declared goal, very far from the declared goal, although the search is ongoing, and I would like to greet the German presidency in EU, which promotes reapproachment of Chisinau and Tiraspol positions, but the other goals are pursued by the Russian Federation, and I'm sure as long as the Russian Federation has any influence on the negotiations, in this format than finalization or finding any formula of cooperation and mutual relations and settlement in left and right bank in Moldova. They won't be found, and in Ukraine the observers from Western countries also they might the observers can do as they do in Ukraine. They can persuade Transnistria to change the format into international police mission. Maybe then we can see some end of this very difficult
5+2. I think these conflict areas now in Ukraine is even more interested in a sustainable solution in Transnistria. First, it will eliminate a security problem for Ukraine. Second, if it will be a sustainable solution, it will be a precedent for settling the same problems on the territory of Ukraine. If it will be a Russian prevailed solution in Transnistria, federation, in which Transnistria dominates Chisinau, in which Transnistria is able to block political process in Chisinau, it will be used by Russian Federation as a precedent to settle the conflict in Donbass. So be careful about this. Second, Donbass and Transnistria similarities. I think there are a lot of differences between those two conflicts, and probably the future will be very much different. First, there is no border between Transnistria and Russia, and there is a border between Donbass and Russia. Second, we deal with a very different Russia. Russia in 1992 was withdrawing militarily and trying to save its influence at a very low cost in different parts of post-Soviet region. Transnistria was the case. Now we have a Russia which is not withdrawing. It's a Russia which has a pretty ambitious agenda which extends far beyond Ukraine. When we look at the manipulation of political parties, attempts to destabilize some EU member states, and the military provocations around NATO. So I would not see Russia as in a position interested in a frozen conflict in Donbass. Actually, Russia probably would like to have it half frozen, half hot, in order to maintain pressure on Ukraine, in order to maintain pressure on EU and NATO, and to force them to have a deal. Ideally, probably, Russia would like to have a Yalta kind of agreement. When the great powers agree about something, excluding states about whom they talk actually. This is what Russia would like to. The best probably what can have Ukraine in case of Donbass, first of all, is to push for peacekeepers who will effectively separate parties and guarantee effective ceasefire. After effective ceasefire, we can talk about all the other steps. Unless there is no ceasefire, Ukraine is negotiating with Russia, who is actually blackmailing Ukraine. And it's not an advantage of Ukraine to have such kind of negotiations. This is my position.
Попри те, що це не зовсім нібито тема нашої сьогоднішньої бесіди.
This is not the topic of our today's dialogue, but security plays a key role in Ukrainian and Romanian relationships. That is why it is worth noting Transnistria conflict and the conflict in the east of Ukraine. This is one of negative scenarios, but not the most negative ones. Ukraine faces a problem, the challenge that we may receive not Transnistria, but Transnistria 2 times. Besides quasi-state, this could be also legitimate regime established with middlemen effect of OSCE, so frozen in this is only one scenario, but it's not the only one. There are there are some scenarios which will be of more negative influence. So this conflict may differ from Transnistrian conflict, and its consequences may differ as well due to those factors which have been named by the speakers today. This would be more acute conflict, and it will be half frozen, half hot, and the worst scenario is when it is under the Russian Federation's influence and at the same time legitimized. Agency men inform Association of Romania Ukraine many times makes statements about the need of autonomous Romanian community in the state of Ukraine. Whether the participants, today's panelists, do you know that Ukrainian diaspora in Romania may establish some autonomy of Ukrainians in Romania? This legally is impossible based on the law of Romania. So what will be the assessment of both parties, of Ukrainian side and Romanian side? Please, one more question. Жанна Посвящук, Громадське ТВ. As concerned 5+2 format again, I would like you to give more details how multinational peacekeepers contingent for future possible in this is Ukrainian-Moldovan relations, but not Ukrainian-Romanian. But maybe Mr. Ambassador can tell us about this, because this is practice may be very useful for Ukraine. Could you please comment on both issues? As concerns the second question, we do not negotiate this issue. It is from time to time brought on the agenda by Moldovan side and by observers such as the EU and the USA, but it is Transnistria and RF which do not like to negotiate it. That is why no negotiations are ongoing. As concerns this association of autonomy, I even don't know detailed information. Thank you to our MP who tell us about very serious element of fake in this news. I can add only the one thing. Unfortunately, in the post-Soviet and post-communist space after the collapse of the USSR and communistic state or socialistic camp of countries, unfortunately, many countries have established such a form of existence of many people which I name ethnic business. This is business on ethnic issues, establishing some associations, unions for elementarily to get budgets, local budgets, national budgets, to get allocations, or even the country of their ethnic region. Such associations, they just raise funds, and I am sure that in this case, these representatives of an assembly, so Romanian assembly in Ukraine, who declared the statement to the president seeking the autonomy, I am sure that they have finished Romanian speaking schools in Ukraine, and I am sure that they were granted education in Romanian in Ukraine, and after that they are speaking about the awful state of Romanian ethnic communities in Ukraine. This is just business. Don't make tragedy of this. I would approach this matter from other point of view. Being here, I met very often the representatives of Romanian community in Ukraine, so-called ethnic Romanians. I met them and I met also heads of regions, administrations where they live, and I have always been telling to both sides, to administrations and to Romanians, ethnic Romanians living there, I told them that we just seek the opportunities to extend our relations, to provide support to diaspora, 72% in Chernivtsi region, for example. This should make a bridge between our countries, and it should be the factor of stability which will ensure further development and growth and border relations and all kinds of projects which can improve lives of people on both sides of the border between Ukraine and Romania. We also advised to our ethnic Romanian community to be loyal to the country where they reside, where they work. This would be promotion of the bridge between the countries, which can provide for such communication between the countries. In fact, they should be loyal to the country which citizens they are. That is why if there are any more questions, you can address us. We unfortunately are short of time, and you can have informal talks after this briefing. You know that Ukrainian-Romanian relations could be so friendly. This provides this inspire. Next meeting will be next week on 29th. We will have the visa liberation event, and on 30th there will be the audit of Ukrainian relations with other countries.